So by the end of today, you're going to have a step-by-step plan for how to take that risk, whether you want to write a book or you want to make a music album or you want to start making really good progress on a YouTube channel. By the end of today, we're going to have outlined step-by-step how exactly you're going to do that in the next 90 days. So this is the exact system that I've done anytime I've tried to reach a goal, whether it was moving to a place with a higher cost of living or it was going full-time on a YouTube channel and quitting teaching. Whatever it may be, anytime I've tried to reach some substantial goal, this is what has really worked for me. So the first step in taking any sort of risk, stepping out, trying something new, is this letter R. And it stands for reflect and results. And it might mean something a little different than what you're thinking that means. And what I feel that everyone should have is some sort of passion project in their life. Whenever I have or do not have a passion project in my life, I can tell a huge difference and a gap in my level of fulfillment and satisfaction with life, whether I'm working on some meaningful project, skill, or hobby, or I'm not. So the first thing is to get one of those and to focus on one. Just hone in on this one result, this one project that we want. The second part of this reflection is not necessarily just reflecting on what we want, but it's reflecting on what's worked before. Because there was a study done where there was two groups of people. One group of people were given expert financial advice and told to follow this expert advice. The other group of people were told, reflect on what financial systems have worked for you in the past and do those. And at the end, after a month, they came together, and who had made more effort and more success toward their financial goals for that month was the group who actually just did what worked for them in the past. I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in, okay, well, I'm doing it this way and it like kind of works, but there's probably this like ultimate method that I need to do. Ultimately, it's what method you can sustain long-term that's important, not what technically is in a vacuum the best method, but what's gonna work best for you. So think back to those methods. Last time when I wanted to make gains regarding my body, what did I do last time? Or when I started making gains with music, what did I do last time? What were the routines and systems that I had in place? And we're gonna work on those, and we're gonna carry that forward into the next letter, which is I. Now, I stands for two things. It stands for input and inadequacy. Now you might be kind of surprised by those words. Now there are two types of goals. There are goals which I call input goals and goals that are output goals. For example, an output goal, that'd be the outcome that I want. So for example, with YouTube, I may make a goal. I want to have 50,000 subscribers. Let's say that's an output goal, the outcome that I want. But the inputs that would create that outcome, the actions and the work that I'm going to put in are different than that. So if I want to have a goal of having 50,000 subscribers, let's say, things that are going to correlate with that would be posting videos. That'd be the number one thing to correlate with that. Now, there's a lot of goals that do not have a one-to-one outcome. You can eat well and exercise well, but it's not a one-to-one correlation with weight lost, for example, or gains made. There is definitely a correlation. They do correlate when you do better on one, you'll do better on the other, but it's not necessarily one-to-one. There's some goals that are one-to-one. You write a page of a book, you have a page of the book written. But for things like social media, you want to grow on YouTube, it's demoralizing to make output goals. I spent a lot of time making output goals. I want to have 1,000 subscribers. I want to have 10,000 subscribers. And what happens with YouTube growth and a lot of growth is it's not necessarily linear. It's like it plateaus and then you have a big spike of growth, then it plateaus and a big spike of growth. And all you can do is just keep plugging away. And so it's important to focus on your input. So instead of making a goal like I want to have 10,000 YouTube subscribers, a better goal would be an input goal, the actions I'm going to put in, which is I want to post 10 videos per month. That is a more attainable goal that's directly focused on my actions. And so when the results don't come, I won't necessarily be demoralized. Now I'm going to put in inputs that I think should actually have an effect on the output, and they should definitely correlate. If they're not correlating at all, then something is wrong. But it's fine if they don't have a one-to-one correlation. And so don't get demoralized if the results aren't one-to-one. And the second thing is when we input, we need to be okay with inputting with inadequacy. We need to be okay with failing. A lot of people, okay, I'm motivated, I'm gonna start this YouTube channel or whatever, and then they start and you get 2 views. And that might be considered failure to that person. And when they reach failure, people see failure as like a stop sign. It means the road is done here, we cannot go any further, failure is a stop sign. But failure is not a stop sign, failure is more like a stepping stone. And in teaching, we had an acronym for FAIL, which was first attempt in learning. So it's not a matter of, oh, you failed, so okay, we're done. You can't go any further. It's a stepping stone. You fail, you go to another stepping stone, you fail again, you fail again, you fail again, you fail again, and success. So you have to be okay with a certain amount of inadequacy and a certain amount of, there is a perfect way to, lose weight, a more optimal way to lose weight. But you know what? What worked for me in the past was actually this, and that's going back to our reflecting on what's worked in the past and saying, I'm not going to do it the optimal way, what is technically most efficient, but I'm going to do what I can stick with in the long term, which is the most effective. The most advanced thing you could do is the basics every day. So we're not trying to seek some advanced method and do more research. You have to be okay with just doing the basics and failing, and it's going to be messy, especially like when I was launching the planner, for example. This is one of the first drafts. This is not even the first draft. And now it looks something like this. These are incredibly two different things. And what's difficult is when you see a vision of something and then you actually go to output it and it looks really crappy to you. It looks really inadequate. And what the testament between people who reach success and people who don't are the ones who have the most patience and the most tolerance for their own inadequacies. S stands for schedule in segments. Now, this right here is what I feel like really my bread and butter is when it comes to goal setting. And it comes down to the time funnel, which I will link. I have a playlist that walks you through exactly how this works. But basically, you take a yearly goal and you say, let me break that up into 4 chunks, okay? Into 4 quarters. Where do I want to be at each of those? Then you break those quarters down, take the first quarter, break it down to its 3 months, okay? I'll give 3 monthly benchmarks. Then you break the first month into its 4 weeks. Where do I want to be there? Then you break the first week into its 5 days. And then all of a sudden you have a daily action plan. Monday, I want to do this. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You don't want to schedule all 365 days at once. That would just be too much. You just schedule the first week. And when you get to the next week, you schedule that. When you get to a new month, schedule the new month. When you get to a new quarter, segment the new thing. It allows you to reevaluate because we have these best laid plans, we have these good intentions, but things will happen. We need to regularly reevaluate. So we set the plan, but we allow for some flexibility depending on what happens. And that's basically exactly what this planner ended up being. You've got the quarter, and you break it up into its months. At the top of the monthly spread, you break that up into the 4 weekly outcomes. And then when you get to the week, you chunk that weekly goal into 5 daily outcomes. And these are all inputs again. It's not like I want to have 100 pounds lost, so that means by this day I want to have 1 pound lost, because that kind of can get demoralizing when it's an output. But instead make a goal of, the inputs I can put in are going to the grocery store and to meal planning at the start of the week, if that's the type of system that worked for me, and putting in the actions on the calendar, not just I want to have 1 pound lost. And then finally, K stands for key task kickstart. So once you've broken down your big goal, like say you want to write a book and you say, okay, by the end of quarter 1, I want to have it rough drafted, which means by the end of month 1, I want to have these chapters rough drafted, which means by the end of week 1, I want to have 2 chapters rough drafted. So once you get down to your key tasks, they're so important, maybe you put those in your planner, for example, then you spend, what I found is helpful for me, but you could do whatever's worked for you in the past, is an hour a day on those key tasks. There is definitely a resistance to getting started, which I will talk about in this word kickstart. Within the resistance to getting started, it's because sometimes there's like a pressure of, this is important to me. This is something that's fulfilling to me and giving me purpose. A lot of what's difficult about getting started is just the understanding that it's so important. And I found so much more fulfillment when I spend an hour a day on the weekday, spend an hour a day working on a meaningful project. When I stop working on a meaningful project every day, my satisfaction goes way down. So now what I talked about was there's like this resistance. It feels important, but you're like, how do I actually make myself sit down and do it? And that's where this kickstart comes in. I talked about this principle for the preemptive momentum principle, which basically means like an object at rest wants to stay at rest, an object in motion wants to stay in motion. So you have this concept of inertia that you have to master every day, where you have one work day, you're working on the book, and then you stop that session, and you don't work on the book all day. Then tomorrow comes, you got to start working on the book, you work on it, you stop, and there's the start, stop, start, stop. But what if you could give yourself the illusion that you had never stopped, so you continue this momentum? Because the hardest part about getting things done is just getting started. So if we could just conquer that momentum issue, we could really make a lot of progress. The best method that I have found for doing that is what I've called the setup method. So if I've outlined, okay, I want to have 1 YouTube video out this week, and my task for that day is, okay, I need to edit the YouTube video. To edit the YouTube video, to get into that task, it's like, okay, I gotta get the SD card, put it in the computer, open Final Cut, create a new project. There's all this stuff to getting started. And it feels like all this inertia that I have to get going. But what if actually at the end of the previous day, I started so that we're in the middle of it? So it's not start a task, complete the task, next day start a new thing, but it's actually start in the middle, end in the middle of something, so the next day you naturally want to complete it, because the hardest part was getting started. At the end of the workday, it's easier than at the start of the workday to start something new. So why don't we actually use our brains, use psychology, to do at the end of one workday the beginning of tomorrow's work? Instead of doing all that hard work of creating the new project and putting the SD card in the computer that morning of, I do that the day before. The day before. If I need to edit on Tuesday, then on Monday, put the SD card in the computer, create a new project, and I might edit a couple minutes of footage already, so it's already started. So that when I get to the next thing, there's not this, I gotta get started. It's already started. I just gotta continue the momentum that we started yesterday. I do have my planner, which kind of like walks through this process step by step if you're interested in that as well. So go ahead and check that out.